Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff from the Cyber Pro podcast back with another episode. Today, we are going to talk about why military veterans are ideal recruits for cybersecurity. And our guest today is Sean, and he will indoctrinate us into why this is true. And this is going to be fascinating. So, with that, let's jump right in. Sean, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right. I am a campus director and a lead instructor for the MyComputerCareer Cyber Warrior program out here at Nellis Air Force Base in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada.
Well, it's 100 degrees in Los Angeles today, so I can only imagine what it is out there. And for those of our viewers in Canada, I'm sorry. Question number two, share with us the most interesting aspect about being in education within cybersecurity during these interesting times, because man, things are moving so fast. And then I guess my follow-up question is, how do you keep the curriculum
Fresh?
current,
Yeah.
fresh? Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's very difficult to do that. And trying to keep up with everything that's going on as fluid and push forwardness of the cybersecurity world. There's got to be so many different things that come along every month, every year that we've never seen before. So we have to respond to that. And as these new threats, as these new technologies, as these new tools come along in education, we've got to keep current with that. Because if you don't, if you're even 1 or 2 years behind, then someone's using something newer and better than anything that you've seen before. And that's not good from an education standpoint. And it's not good from a cybersecurity standpoint because the threat actors out there are going to have the edge. And we don't want that.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about staying current and staying fresh. Actually, I brought that up, but let's talk about that for a second. I would imagine, and this is where I'm hoping you can either expand on it or tell me I'm wrong. I would imagine that being in the educational aspect at generally the beginning parts of people's career, it's more about laying down the correct foundation than it is about specific threats, right? So if you have a good baseline to teach them about what they could or might expect once they're out in the real world, then when they do encounter that, they'll have the baseline tools of knowledge on how to appropriately react. Is that a fair statement?
100%. You bet. If you can get that solid foundation, when you're talking about hardware and you're talking about networking and you're talking about basic security concepts, once you build that foundation, and then you can have the tools to grow and respond from there. Because without that foundation, as things move, as things change, it's going to quickly get outside that comfort zone. It's going to get outside that area of expertise, and you're going to be floundering. So without that foundation, you've got nothing to build on. And so by having that foundation, it definitely allows you the opportunity to react and approach all these different technologies and these different threats as they come along, no doubt.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for one more minute, right? When you have folks who are coming into the business that are new and don't have a lot of that foundational work, how do you start? What do you look for in a person when they walk in through the door to, and I'm going to roll my eyes, not assess them and their capabilities, but basically say, hey, this guy's got the right stuff to be successful in this area. How is that? What do you look for?
Well, my computer career, we have all sorts of different people from all sorts of different backgrounds that walk through our door. So it's kind of hard to nail down that one specific set of attributes that we look for in anybody. But the biggest thing is the willingness to learn. That's from an educational standpoint. That's in any setting from an educational standpoint. You, that person who walks through the door has to be willing to learn, especially if they're a career changer, which is what most of the folks who come through our doors are looking to do. So whether they were, it doesn't matter where they came from, they've got to be willing to put in the effort. They've got to be willing to listen, and they've got to be willing to be a good student to build that foundation as we go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that comment in theory, but I'm gonna hit this one back to at you. And this is this is the crux of our conversation about why military veterans are perfect recruits for cybersecurity. I like the sound of anyone can be a cybersecurity expert, but if I'm honest to myself, and we should be to our viewers, it's a really tough lift if somebody was doing something completely different with no educational background or skill sets that they learned from their previous life to transition into something like this. And so maybe you can talk a little bit more about why those military skills fit well in this transition as opposed to, something silly, a guy who used to make pies for a living. I don't know, but you get my point. So let's talk about military veterans. Why are they a good fit?
You got it. I see where you're coming from with that. Military veterans have a lot going for them before they even walk through the door. You know, you've got your military experience, so you have a certain level of responsibility and a certain level of maturity that already comes with it. But from a cybersecurity standpoint, you've got an individual that is already thinking security, whether it's physical security, because when you're in the military, from day one, you're constantly being hit with, hey, you've got to keep your eyes open. You've got to watch out for things that are out of the ordinary when you're on a base or you're in a military installation. But you're also thinking about from day one, OPSEC and InfoSec, operations security, information security, because there's constantly you're constantly being exposed in the military to pieces of information that, if it got out, can be of use to somebody who's a threat actor. So they're constantly being trained, and they're constantly thinking about that security. So when they walk through the door and they're like, okay, I want to get into cybersecurity, they've already got quite the running start because they've already sort of got that mindset going on.
I'm going to take that from one other angle and get your opinion on it. Mindset, yes, but how about this? If they're a military veteran in one form or another, they've lived a life where they are being trained against an adversary. They may not know who that adversary is, how capable they are, what direction they're coming from, but they know that this person walking in through the door is going to try to do them harm. So, would you say that that would be a core tenet of why folks who used to wear a uniform would fit well into this uniform?
Oh, definitely. That flexibility. So you're not focused on one thing that might be a threat. Like you mentioned, you don't know where that threat is going to come from. You don't know what form that threat is going to take. And in cybersecurity, you've got to maintain that big picture, that open mindedness to be able to respond to anything that does get thrown at you. And so somebody who was in uniform at one time, like you mentioned, is thinking about that also. They're like you said, not sure where that threat's going to come from. You're not sure if that person walking through the door is a friend or a foe, or that person that you're going to meet online is attempting something malicious or not. They're already thinking, well, I need to approach this from a certain amount of apprehension and open-mindedness.
Apprehension. I guess that's a really good way of putting it. Well, very good. For those of our viewers who want to learn a little bit more about you, Sean, or the educational programs that you guys offer, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is reach out to us, My Computer Career on LinkedIn, or you can visit our website at mycomputercareer.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the time today. We really appreciate it, Sean. We're going to end with a fun question, and that's a little bit about retro technology. Tell us about yours and why it makes you smile.
Well, a piece of retro technology would be something that was called a sidekick. It's a flip phone that when you would turn on its side and you would split, there's a little keyboard underneath that allowed you to text. And for the longest time, that's what I had. Even when I got into the IT career field, and I started out as a student at my computer career, I still had my little sidekick and everybody else with their smartphones and their apps, and I still had my little texting on my keyboard. And I had an IT instructor who became a good friend of mine tell me, nobody is going to take you seriously in IT if you walk around with that phone. So I decided to upgrade to a smartphone, but I still have my sidekick.
It's something very ethereal, I think, about having a physical keyboard that we're just not able to replicate on a screen. So I
No
think there's
doubt.
a large percentage of us who would agree with you. There's that feeling of it, right? Love it.
Exactly.
Well, again, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on.
Have a good day.
You too.
You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast today. You can find more content here and here and there.